It's March 2020. All of these people are afraid of COVID. I'm afraid of government overreach. I'm afraid of what could happen in the future if you give them this power. Something that was supposed to be objective has now become subjective, and we have no standards for this. Like, you know, what are the long-term consequences of that? If you can get people to believe that this table is round, this is a circle, then we're in trouble. What else can you convince them of? People are struggling. Even in the West, even in developed countries, people are struggling. Things are really getting expensive. I remember how much things used to cost 10 years ago compared to now. Like, inflation is real. I have a general belief that most technologies typically has the power to both liberate and to enslave. It's kind of crazy to think, like, already owning a whole Bitcoin is already completely out of the reach of the majority of the population. Spending a few hours researching and learning about Bitcoin is one of the best ROIs you will ever in your life have on your time. If you care about humanity, then I think you should care about Bitcoin. I don't believe that money changes people's character. I think that money is an amplifier. I think it makes you more of what you already are, and it enables certain behaviors and actions. But I don't think money fundamentally changes who somebody is. Cowardice and courage are both habits as well. And I think that's something people don't realize. It's not simply hardwired into your personality, it's also habits. And the more you do something, the more you reinforce it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Voice, this time from El Salvador, San Salvador. We are at the National Palace. I am in the most beautiful place I've ever had the opportunity to record an episode for you, and it's called the Blue Room, and this used to be the assembly. Once upon a time, there were 21 parliament members or Congress members sitting in this room behind us, and this is where we're recording the episode for you today. So thanks for being with me. I am more than honored to have a person that I've been following for a long, long time on the internet, but now it's in real life. Zuby, how are you?
Blessed and highly favored as always.
Thank you so much for being so spontaneous and so courageous and beautiful to do this with me.
Happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
Amazing. So, you know what? I'll start with a quick bio because I normally do that so that I don't think anyone doesn't know you, but let's say some of my audience may not know you. I want to make sure they do. So Zuby is a British-Nigerian rapper, author, podcaster, and public speaker. Raised in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah,
is that
mostly
correct? After being born in Luton.
Born in Luton.
In Luton in the UK, England. He studied computer science at university. That was an interesting fun fact for me. Before launching an independent music career. And he has self-released multiple albums and EPs, achieved tens of thousands of album sales independently, created a merchandise line, built a follower of over 2 million on social media. Is it 2 million?
Yeah, over.
More.
Yeah. Amazing.
And his work extends beyond music into fitness coaching, authorship. Your podcast is called Real Talk with Zuby, which features guests across cultures, tech, and politics. And I've now just learned that you had more than 400 episodes once a week without failing. So that's incredible. Well done.
Thank you.
And I think you're well noted for your ethos of self-reliance, authenticity, and independent entrepreneurship and critical thinking. You have basically built your platform without any major label backing, and you're like a self-made person, and I love that because I'm all for personal sovereignty, and I think that's why you resonate with me so much, and definitely with freedom fighters and truth seekers around the world. So I just want to first start by saying thank you for being one of those super important voices in the last 4 or 5 years that I've been following you, for doing what you're doing, because as we just talked about, and we'll get to that in a second, not many people did that.
Yeah. Well, I'm honored. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for caring, and thank you for the kind introduction. I appreciate it.
So just before we hit record, we started talking about the concept of FU money, right?
Yeah.
And normally where I come from, I know the concept of FU money as having Bitcoin, and then you really don't need to care much about worries in life and things in life. But you were looking at it from a different angle. Mostly people affiliate FU money for wealthy people that have a lot of wealth and assets, and now they don't have to work anymore or care about what people think about them or things like that. If that was the case, we would have seen more courageous voices out there when we talk about wealthy individuals or famous people and things like that. Why is this not the case? What's your take on this?
I think it's not the case because I don't believe that money changes people's character. I think that money is an amplifier. I think it makes you more of what you already are, and it enables certain behaviors and actions. But I don't think money fundamentally changes who somebody is. If someone is poor or of average means, and they're a generous person, and they come into a lot of wealth or they earn a lot of money, then they'll still be typically a generous person. They'll just have more to be generous with. If someone was super stingy, very, very tight with their money and selfish, just in general, and then they come into a lot of wealth, they're not going to suddenly become super generous, right? Yeah. They'll still just be stingy, but they'll have more to hoard, and they'll have more to give away, but they still wouldn't want to give it away. Similarly, if someone is courageous, you don't need courage and wealth are not correlated. You don't need to be a wealthy person to be courageous. Like, it doesn't even make sense, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a coward and you get rich, cool, you're a rich coward. If you were already courageous, if you're already a brave person and you gain more wealth, then yeah, you already were brave. Now perhaps the wealth can protect and insulate you from certain consequences to a certain degree. But it just fundamentally doesn't change your character, which is, I think there are a lot of people who would like to believe that, oh, if I just had this much, or I just earned this much or this much, then I would be a more virtuous person in some way, shape, or form. I mean, courage is a virtue, and I think people like to think, oh, well, I can't say anything on this, or I can't do anything here or here because, like, I can't afford to. Maybe if I had, more money, then I'd be more. But it's a cope. It's not real, and we know it's not real because we've seen it in real life, and we see in real life that there's not like some huge positive correlation between people having money or being rich or wealthy and being particularly bold and outspoken or courageous in any type of way, even if we're just talking about words. We don't see it. So it's not real. I think people would like to think it is. There's an excuse for their own cowardice at certain times.
Right.
But yeah, it's not real. FU character exists, and brave people exist, and cowardice exists, and we can all exhibit this in different ways at different times. But yeah, I think it's that simple, really.
I agree with you, and we got to that because we mentioned people like Ricardo Salinas or Musk or Saylor, like people that do have a lot, but were and are willing to challenge the status quo and to talk about the reality as it is today and mention what is wrong with it and what's a scam and what's a fraud and what doesn't work. And that takes balls, and it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. I think that it actually becomes harder the more wealth you have because you have more to risk.
Yes.
And there were very few people during COVID, for example, that spoke about the horrendous things that were happening because they were too conscious about what's going to happen to their status or their reputation or their fan base. What is it?
We have a lot of obvious examples, especially in the past decade. The pandemic or scamdemic is a huge one. But even prior to that, I mean, if I think of one of the first things that happened that like made me go viral and put me on the radar of millions of people, it was back in the beginning of 2019 when I identified as a woman and I broke the British women's deadlift record, and that went crazy viral. And at that time, if you go back to beginning of 2019, very, very few people were willing to address that issue, right? So you're living in a world from 2015 onwards, if you live in the West, where people are literally pretending a man can be a woman or a woman can be a man, and you can just say whatever, and people are just going along with this gigantic lie. right? This shouldn't even be like politicized. It's not political. It's just a matter of biology. You're a woman. I'm a man. I can't magically turn into a woman. You can't magically turn into a man just by like. Right? It's complete nonsense. It's complete nonsense. But for years, the vast majority of people are either saying this or playing along. So people know it's nonsense. People know it's not true, but they're pretending it's true because they don't want to be called a name. They don't want to be canceled. They don't want to be labeled, whatever it is. And at that time, I'm not the only person, but I was one of the few people with any type of like sort of platform or prominence who was willing to just say what it is. And obviously in my case, it resulted in a viral moment, which led to a ton of opportunities. But even on that particular issue, which is something that's not even a matter of opinion, it's just a matter of like objective reality. And you just see how hesitant and cowardly some people have been and still continue to be on something like that. So of course they're not going to speak up when the governments are trying to lock people in their houses and force masks on people and force vaxxes on people and what, because look, cowardice and courage are both habits as well. And I think that's something people don't realize. It's not simply hardwired into your personality, it's also habits. And the more you do something, the more you reinforce it.
You're the Voice is brought to you by Trezor, the original Bitcoin hardware wallet company pioneering the development of self-custody for crypto assets since 2013, empowering individuals with an open-source device, enabling beginners and experts to easily and securely hold their coins. I find my Trezor super easy to use and recommend it to my friends and family. Enjoy my 5% discount on Trezor products by clicking the link in the show notes and using the code FLAT. I want to introduce you to Abundant Minds because they take a very different approach to Bitcoin mining. Most people buy Bitcoin, but the smart ones mine it straight into self-custody. With Abundant Minds, you can do it without giving up your privacy. Abundant Minds was founded by Bo and Christine Marie Turner, a couple who lost more than $500,000 to providers making empty promises. Instead of walking away, they built a company that raises the industry standard and puts client first, and that's why I like them. With Abundant Minds, you own your machines. They never touch your Bitcoin, never skim a revenue share, and you choose your own mining pool. Their customer care is unusual. Clients speak to a real person for self-custody education, privacy consulting, and even visiting their site. They serve clients from around the world, but US investors specifically enjoy a big tax benefit and 100% bonus depreciation. This is more than just mining Bitcoin. It's about freedom, privacy, and purpose. You can book a free strategy call, see how it works, and mine some of your first Bitcoin for free with a special offer for my audience. Learn more on abundantminds.com/efrat.
So if every time there is a difficult or a challenging or a scary situation, you default to cowardice, then it gets harder and harder and harder to be brave when life calls you to be brave in any sort of way. I'm not even talking about you having to like a situation where you might have to risk your life.
Right.
It could just be saying no when you need to say no. It could be sticking up for someone or a principle or something when the time calls. And if you have not exercised that muscle, it atrophies. Whereas if you naturally default to just being honest, telling the truth, sticking to your principles, then you naturally default to that. So over the past 7 years in particular, I mean, I've had so many people explicitly thank me for my courage. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for courage. And I'm not being, I'm not trying to be like falsely modest here, but I half take it as a compliment, but sometimes it also annoys me a little. I take it as a compliment because cool, like it's a good thing to be brave and courageous and thanks. I guess I am to some degree.
I think I know what you're going to say and I love it. Go on.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It bothers me because
I want you to be like, I want you guys that they're telling me that.
Yeah, but like the bar, I feel like the bar is so low.
Yeah.
Because when I think of, when I think of courage, when I think of bravery, of course, people can be brave in their words, right? So I don't want to downplay the importance of like speaking up when it's difficult
Yeah.
or challenging a certain status quo or something that's wrong in a difficult time, that is genuinely courageous. But when I think of courage, I mean, I think of, all through human history when men have been going to war or people have been like fighting, I don't know, firemen running into burning buildings, police officers working in certain situations where they're dealing with like violent crime. When you're like, your life is at risk, right? People are trying to bomb you, blow you up, kill you, slash you with a sword, whatever, and you're still there. Soldiers landing at D-Day in Normandy. I'm like, wow, okay, that's brave, that's courageous. Like, there's my probability of surviving this is like 5%, but I'm gonna go out there and like do it. Whoa,
But now?
right? Am I that brave? I guess under certain circumstances, I can imagine scenarios where, yeah, I'll take that risk. But it's very, very narrow. All right, there aren't a lot of things where I'd be like, hey, there's a 90% chance of this is gonna kill you. But like, I'd be like, gosh, like that's kind of rough. But if it's just words, if it's just speaking, especially if it's something that is just true.
So obvious, yeah.
If it's something that's just true and it's just real, it's not even a matter of opinion, then yeah, that kind of bothers me when I'm just like, man, the societal bar.
Because I see that as a moral duty.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. The bar is way too low. Humanity, this is a signal for the state of humanity's consciousness these days. It is in such a low place that just speaking truth became brave.
Yes.
I agree with you. Like, why is that brave? I'm just speaking truth. That should be the default. That should be the normal status quo.
Yeah.
Everyone that doesn't do that should be called another name, but I don't know if I should be called brave. I am just doing my moral duty as a human being on this planet that wants a better future for my son, right? This is like completely normal.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And obviously I'm not upset with people who are saying that. We are living in times where it became really difficult to voice your opinion or your view.
Yeah, I do understand it. I'm not under any sort of illusion or confusion as to why more people don't speak up in certain scenarios. But I think some of it is also, people thinking too short term.
Yeah.
Because I think oftentimes people think of the sort of potential, often imaginary short-term consequences, but they don't weigh it up against the long-term consequences of inaction or silence, right? So with many things, it's typically better to, with almost any problem that exists, it's better and easier to deal with it early rather than late.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't matter whether it's an illness or an injury, or it's a relationship problem, or it's a financial debt issue, whatever, it's easier to deal with it early on. And if you think long term, especially if you even think multi-generationally, then it changes the math, right? So this is really how I felt like when all the COVID stuff really started kicking off the beginning of 2020, like February, March 2020, when the governments started to, lock people in their houses and wanted to like do all these mandates and just basically strip away all of people's basic freedoms and civil liberties, which I had assumed, at least in the West, that were like a given, and people were like wanting the government to do that and giving it away. I very quickly was just like, wait, no, this is not right. Like, I have questions here. Like, what's going on, right? The response is going to be worse than the thing you're responding to.
Yep.
But, people were so afraid that was not a popular viewpoint, right? So it kind of puts you in the target of a lot of people. But I thought, look, if you allow this, it's so weird because that whole time period from 2020 to 2022, even 2023, depending on where somebody was, like I saw it coming. Like, I knew what was going to happen. Like, you remember the whole 2 weeks to slow the spread, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, 15 days to flatten the curve, right? It's just going to be 2 weeks. I was like, no, it's not. If people collectively agree to this, then it's going to keep going. It's going to keep escalating. Like, it was so obvious to me. And next thing you know, it's 300 days, and then it's 500 days, and then it's 700 days, and in some places it went on for approaching 1,000 days. of lockdowns and mandates and policies and this and this and this. And in my opinion, very little of it was ever necessary. It wasn't effective. It harmed people far more than it did any good. Even if people disagree with that, you should agree that we should have been able to like have that conversation and debate, and it shouldn't have just been, okay, just top down, mandated, no discussion, no room for dissent. In fact, if you dissent, we're gonna like ban you from platforms, and we're gonna try to silence you, and we're gonna attack you and call you all these names. And you know, over time, as it went on and on, I do think more and more people started to see through the matrix for sure. And I think courage is contagious, and people started to see more and more people speaking up and questioning things, and it reached a tipping point where it couldn't have been pushed further. I believe we'd still be locked down and under mandates if certain people had there been no dissent, and you know, everyone just went with it and the cracks didn't come through. Like, you know, we could still be here in 2025. I mean, COVID is still around, isn't it? Right? Like, it hasn't gone anywhere. So how come we're all free again now, right? Like, couldn't we have done this back then, right? Like, so, I don't know. I don't want to ramble too long, but that's my thought on that.
No, you're not. This is perfect. What do you think is that spark you have in you that, had you noticed the scam early on in COVID, but also, you know, the gender bullshit and all the other stuff that you're seeing and talking about?
Yeah.
What is this? Like, if I'm trying to, with you together, define this, because I feel it in my gut.
Yeah.
Like when I see things or when I hear about some things that are happening, I get this feeling, this energy that I have to shine light on this. I have to show this to the world. How would you call this bug, this spark that you have in you? I don't know, this need to show the world what is happening so that they see it.
Yeah.
And where does it come from?
I think it comes from God.
From God, right.
I think it comes from God, and I also think, I mean, it's a commandment. As a Christian, you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to. Cowardice is a sin.
Yeah.
People forget that cowardice is a sin. Right? If you are a person of faith, if you are a Christ follower, you are supposed to be bold. You're supposed to be courageous. You're supposed to, you know, be the salt and light. You're supposed to speak about the truth and, you know, expose the fake. And if something is damaging to humanity, right? Like these examples we've used, as far as I'm concerned, these are things that are very damaging to humanity. There's some things that, you know, aren't that consequential, but I'm like, no, these are
things
serious
that are
consequential issues. This is like affecting and harming, you know, millions, potentially billions of people in some of these cases. So, I think it's a calling. I mean, so I'm sure some of it is just my natural personality, hardware and wiring that I don't, you know, I wouldn't say
so I want to
Sure.
take you a bit further.
Okay, go ahead.
On this. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a point in which it becomes easier when it's not about you anymore. When when you feel that you are being called to speak about something or to shed light on it or to show something to people.
Yeah.
And the price you may pay, the consequences, they're minimized in comparison to what humanity, as you said, will gain, right? So and that's already a larger viewpoint, a larger consciousness than it's just about me. And then I'm gonna suffer and I'm gonna pay the price and and then the fear starts taking over. So it almost sounds like at one point it's not about you anymore, and then it's easier for you to just do it again and again and again and be there.
Yeah, I think that's true. And look, I'm not a man that doesn't have fears.
Sure.
Maybe I just fear different things. Okay, so it's March 2020, and you know, all of these people are afraid of a virus. They're afraid of, you know, getting flu-like symptoms. They're afraid of COVID. I'm afraid of government overreach. I'm afraid of giving up our most basic civil liberties because there's a virus in the air. I'm afraid of kids and adults being pulled out of schools and universities and people losing their jobs. I'm afraid of what's going to happen if businesses are shut down indefinitely and the economy tanks. I'm afraid of what happens when everyone's just sitting at home and not working and the government's just printing a ton of money. I'm afraid of what could happen in the future if you give them this power. And then next time, what if there's, there's another illness going around? So like, what, they're going to lock everyone in their house again and force injections on people? Like, so those were my fears. So maybe I'm just like, my fears are different. I'm afraid of what will happen to a society and what kind of world, our collective future children and grandchildren will grow up in if we cede one of the most basic tenets of reality, that men and women exist. There's male and there's female. Everyone who exists was birthed from a woman. We all have mothers. There's no one on this earth right now or who has ever walked this planet who was birthed from a man. And all of a sudden we're going to start pretending none of this is true, right? Like I'm concerned of what are the long-term consequences of those types of lies, that type of cowardice. That's what I'm afraid of. I'm not afraid of being called a bigot or a transphobe because I don't think women can have cocks, right? I don't mean to be, just stating it as it is, right? Like it's not true, okay? If someone was like, if there was someone who was trying to convince us all, not just convince me, convince everyone that this isn't a perfect rectangle, but it's rectangular. Someone was trying to convince us that this is a circle.
Yeah.
They're like, no, this is a circle.
Yeah.
If you don't say this is a circle, you're hateful and you're a bigot and this and that. They're trying to insist, they're trying to make everyone, children, adults, all of us, we've all agreed before, no, this is rectangular. And now all of a sudden out of nowhere, no, we're trying to force down this. So I'm not super passionate about geometry. Okay, I don't love squares and circle. Like I'm not super passionate about it, but I would fight very hard against that because it's like, no, this is a lie. And it's not just a lie that like, look, if you want to believe it's a circle, go ahead, you can believe it's a circle. But if you're trying to put in the education system and you're going to attack people who are trying to tell the truth and you're going to do like, what are the long-term consequences of that?
Yeah.
What are the long-term consequences? Wait, you break that, now you've broken mathematics, right? And now, it's something that was supposed to be objective has now become subjective. And we have no standards for this. Like, what are the long-term consequences of that? If you can get people to believe that this table is round, this is a circle, then we're in trouble. What else can you convince them of? And we've seen this before.
Many things,
we have historical precedent.
Yeah.
Of what happens when you can make people believe things that are like just objectively absurd. It doesn't lead to good places. And I don't want to live through that. And I think a lot of people don't think deeply enough about these things to understand how those type of atrocities happen and understand the fact that it can happen again. We're not so far removed from history. We're still living
not
through
at
it.
all.
No.
In fact, I think we're closer than we've ever been.
Yeah.
In a world hypnotized and sleepwalking towards totalitarian control and digital enforcement, awakened voices rise to inspire change and radiate hope. In December 2024, I had the honor of hosting Professor Matthias Desmet at a conference I produced called New Totalitarian Order. This masterclass is now recorded and available to watch. The conference explores the psychology behind global mass processes, offering a behind-the-scenes look at science, economics, and human potential. It addresses challenging global agendas, mass formation, transhumanism, consciousness, societal change, and the path to transformation. Click the link in the show notes to access 3.5 hours of exclusive presentations, in-depth content, and my fireside chat with Professor Desmet. Use my code EFRAT for 10% off. I hope you find great value in it. Tired of feeling like your freedom and future are fading away? Do you live in a country with growing inflation, crazy housing prices, weird culture, and a chaotic economy? You're not alone, and my friend Mikkel Thorpe and his team at Expat Money can help. Mikkel is the world's leading expat consultant on a mission to free you from broken systems. He's been an expat for 25 years, lived in 9 different countries, and has helped hundreds of people with second residencies and passports, offshore banking, international investing, and many other essential tools. If you're serious about protecting your wealth and your family, it's not enough to hope things will get better. You need a plan B in another country. The team at Expat Money can help you build it legally, safely, and without wasting years of research. Visit expatmoney.com/efrat and leave your details for a follow-up.
So let's talk a bit about your career outside the system. No label, no gatekeepers. What was your conviction that drove you to take the harder, more independent path?
In my music?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a combination of desire and necessity. I mean, I started rapping when I was 18 years old, and I put together my first album when I was 19, and I didn't have money, I didn't have a label, I didn't have like an agent or a manager or anything, it was just me. And so instead of sitting around waiting for some type of handout or some type of permission or verification from the music industry, I was just like, well, I mean, there's nothing stopping me. Like, I've recorded music, I can record music independently. There are CD pressing facilities. So why don't I just go and get some CDs made? Got my friend to take a photo of me, boom, front cover. Pay a graphic designer to do some stuff. So, you know, my first album, Commercial Underground, we put it together. And cool, like, I'm around people. I was in university at the time. So cool, I've got a product, I can sell it to people.
Yep.
So I just started doing that. And as time went on, I got verification and validation that worked, and a lot of people were enjoying my music. And so, you know, I don't like waiting for, I don't like waiting for...
You bring reality into your life.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
manifest it, yeah.
You know, it's almost a cliche at this time, but you know, you can just do things.
Yeah.
You really can.
Yeah.
Especially like artistically or entrepreneurially.
Right.
If you want to just make something, you can make it. Anyone can make a song, anyone can make an album, anyone can write a book. Not just write a book, you can release a book. You can do what you want. You can start a podcast, you can start a YouTube channel. Like anyone can do these things. Whether or not you can do it well, that's a different story. But you know, the gatekeepers have been gone for the most part for at least 2 decades. Maybe a lot of people haven't realized that.
Yeah.
And so
The internet has opened up a completely different
exactly. Like, if you're a
reality.
creative person, you can just create. So I realized that early on, and so I just did it. And then once I'd done it once, I knew I could do it again and again and again. And yeah.
And did you get offers along the way to you know, recruit you to a label or something
nothing
like that?
serious, but by the time that I had gone like full time with my music, it didn't even appeal to me. Like, I've never operated within the music industry. Like, sometimes people ask me about the music industry and I'm like, I don't know, I'm not in it. I don't know the people in it. I don't know, like, I've been in the music business, which is like, you know, me and my fans and not much in between that. But, you know, I've never been an industry person. I've never waited around for, oh, this person needs to approve me, or if this person doesn't like my music, then I can't have, I don't care. If there's people out there who like it, cool. I'll make it for them and I'll sell it to them.
I love it.
Same with podcasts, same with books, same with everything I've created. Everything I've created. I wrote my first book in 2019 and released it. You know, that sold like well over, I don't know the numbers now, but certainly over 12,000 copies completely independently, without even being on Amazon. Like, I was like, well, I've got a social media following, I can promote it there, and you know, people will buy it. And you know, my podcast was completely DIY, and you know, it's made a lot of headway and had many millions of views and downloads now, and had some very, very big and interesting guests. and you can just do it. You don't need permission. You don't need permission. People need to give themselves permission. If you want to do something cool, like there are very few things you need permission for. You can just do it, just create it. If you have this idea, I always talk to people and like, I don't know, they might be in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, and they're like, oh, I really want to write a book. I've been wanting to write a book for years, and I'm like, I'm confused. I'm looking at them confused.
Just do it.
I'm like, do it. Like, whose permission do you need to write a book? Like, you sit down at your computer, or get pen and paper and write the book. Oh, I've been wanting to start a YouTube channel for years. Like, oh, I want to do it. Like, do it. Stop talking. Like, do the thing. Like, just do it.
Do the thing.
Just do it. You know,
I love
like
it.
you really can. And it goes beyond creative stuff. It goes beyond entrepreneurship.
Of course.
Like, you know, just with everything. And I mean, isn't that I think, like, particularly in the Western world, you know, people talk so much about like freedom and liberty. And what's fascinating about that is, I think as you get older and older and you interact with more and more people, you realize that for the most part, at least this is true of the West and most economically developed countries. You know, people are really caged and trapped by themselves.
Yeah.
They're the ones blocking and limiting and censoring themselves. It's not coming from the
100%.
government or the state or other people in general. It's like up there. People lock themselves in this weird cage in their brain, and they're like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do that, I'm not this, I'm not that. It's like, well, you can. What's stopping you? Right? Like, what is stopping you? Oh, I want to get in shape. I've been wanting to, like, you know, like exercise. Is someone stopping you from exercising? Do it. Just do it, and just get started. Because once you're started, you know, it's hard to go from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
But once you're moving, once something has started, it's so much easier to just keep it going. And as I said before, if you've done something once, you have proven to yourself and to others, if that matters to you, that you can do it again. If you can do something once, you can typically do it again, unless it's like a max bench press or deadlift or something. But after a rest, you can do it again.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay. Let me see. I wanted to ask you about Bitcoin because we are at a Bitcoin historical conference, right?
We are.
This is, for people who don't know, this is, I think, the first proper government-driven event of Bitcoin that I've ever been to, that I've seen. And I think this is quite spectacular, like the way that the government here embraces Bitcoin. And we all know the story of El Salvador with in 2021 declaring Bitcoin as a legal tender. Even though recently they have repealed that definition, they're still, I think, the #1 country in the world to embrace Bitcoin and make it a friendly currency and asset. And I think they're going more in the direction of a reserve asset than a medium of exchange, kind of daily monetary asset, which is understandable in terms of the way Bitcoin is progressing around the world, with the US leading the way, etc. So what I want to ask you, your view about the change that we are witnessing these days in terms of the monetary order changing from completely, debt-based monetary system, fiat, whether you're using US dollar, euros, or any other currency, to a digital system that some countries adopt as Bitcoin and other countries adopt as CBDCs, stablecoins, and many other shenanigans that they're coming up with. Where do you see this going? How do you think that change in the monetary order is influencing our world today? And do you think enough people are aware of that change that is actually happening right now? I mean, I know many people are aware, especially in our audiences, about the limitations on cash and how governments are clamping down on our rights consistently since COVID, and with the digital ID now, cash is being also eliminated slowly. We're going towards cashless societies, but there's clearly a trend, there is a change. I personally believe most people are not aware of what's happening. How do you see that change unfolding? And do you think society is aware of what's happening?
Society certainly is not aware of what's happening. I mean, not to speak badly about the general population in any way, but most people don't even know what money is or
Yeah, right.
have basic understanding of money and economics. If they did, more people would be Bitcoiners.
Yeah. Right,
More
absolutely.
people would be Bitcoiners, and I think people would vote very differently and advocate quite different policies. I think socialism and communism would be dead in the water permanently if people had an idea about these type of things, but they don't. And they're typically not taught. Whether you're in the public or private schooling system, most people never learn about money. Even if you go to very good schools, as I did, go to a very good university, all the stuff I know about money and fractional reserve banking and
Inflation.
the inflation scam. I learned about inflation when I was 16 or 17 in school,
really?
but that's specifically because I chose to study economics. It's not a mandatory subject.
But they taught you that it's good. It's positive to have 2 to 3% a year.
It was Keynesian economics, of
Yeah.
course, right? But there's some. At least you learn about supply and demand curves and how things are priced and certain basic economic laws. And I did learn that governments / central banks printing money is predominantly what causes inflation. I do remember learning that in school.
Yep.
But most people don't. And look, I also think to give some grace as well, I'm aware that most people are just very busy, and most people are generally just trying to survive day to day, take care of themselves, take care of their families, make sure there's food on the table, and so on, right? Especially on a global level.
Yeah.
Like, most people don't have a lot of free time to sit around and think about issues and study, partly because the monetary system traps them in this way. But
yes.
But I understand. In the same way, I understand that it's difficult to spend the time and the energy and the money to really look into nutrition and taking care of your health and making sure you're exercising regularly. It's easier not to do than it is to do. And I think the majority of people are always going to do what is easier rather than what is more difficult and time consuming. Most people in most things will always take the path of least resistance. So with all that said, in terms of Bitcoin and CBDCs, I have a general belief that most technologies, certainly any major technology, typically has the power to both liberate and to enslave. So if we are talking about digital money,
Yep.
or just money in general, but certainly with digital money, there are at least two obvious paths to me. And one is the path of increased enslavement and outsourcing of power and control, CBDCs. The other is taking the power back and taking back the control and the ownership and putting the trust in oneself. And the most perfect manifestation of that is Bitcoin and all of the philosophy around it. Self-custody, really, truly owning your own money, not needing all these middlemen to transact, being able to just, have something scarce that you can deal with peer-to-peer and use however you like. So what path? Pick your path, humanity. And I think long-term, this is going to vary nation to nation, perhaps even state to state might be a better term, because even within a nation, there's, different states, different cities, different, one of my big predictions for this century is just way more decentralization. So I know there are people who think there's going to be this one world government and, new world order, and it's all going to, the countries are going to merge together and the governments are going to merge. I think it's going to go the opposite way.
Yeah.
And even if the trend of my lifetime has even been more decentralization. When I was born, I think there were about 170 countries in the world officially recognized. I think that number is now 195, something like that.
Yep.
So in the course of my own lifetime, the number of countries has actually increased, and I can see that continuing to happen. And so I think on a long time frame, you're going to just see more and more, how would I put it? I think people are increasingly going to migrate digitally and physically more towards people and places that suit their belief system and philosophy and the way that they want to live. And this is already happening. I live in the United Arab Emirates. As you know, lots and lots of people, there used to just be a desert, right? It was nothing. Who would have wanted to live in the UAE like 30, 40, 50 years ago? It was not some popular destination, let alone for, millionaires and people with lots of wealth. It wasn't. But because of their policies and because of the way they're doing things and the overall philosophy of both the government and the people who actually live there, people who agree with that philosophy and who like that and who don't want to be taxed and do want to have more control over those aspects of their life, a lot of people are migrating there. Other people are, there's people who are moving to El Salvador. I know Americans who have moved to El Salvador, right? I mean, America is supposed to be like number one, America number one, right? Like no one ever leaves, we don't even need to have passports because like I'm never leaving the soil. And people are like, oh, actually, there's these other options, maybe for more freedom. Like it sounds interesting, we there are people, if not probably at least hundreds of thousands, but probably millions of Americans. America is land of the free, home of the brave. America's always been famous for its freedom, its liberty, and so on. And in many regards, it ranks highly in those things. But in others, it doesn't, depending on, what you care about and how you look at things and what your philosophy is. And there are people who have left the USA to find more freedom, which to the average American might sound almost blasphemous because they think, no, we already rank number one in that, but not by every measure. And for some people, they're better off being in El Salvador. Other people, they might be better off being here or there. And I just see this trend continuing. We're coming, we're around the end of the first quarter of a new century. It's only 2025. This century is going to end, 2100? So we've got 75 more years of this particular century. I mean, if you think back to 1925, think of like the time between 1925 and the year 2000. And think of how much happened in the world and how many things changed and so on.
Insane.
That's like where we are compared to 2100, right?
Right.
And Lord willing, at least some of us, we might still be alive then, but
That's why I'm saying I want to be alive until I'm 120. It will be exactly in 2100.
Yeah. So, I can't literally predict the future, but I see much more decentralization happening. I see more like, look, okay, if you really want to be, I think, there will be, what you want to be, you believe in communism and you want to be a communist, cool, like go live in that place. You are super hyper capitalistic and you don't want to put much trust in the state and so on. You can be there. I generally believe, there's that concept in physics, I can't remember the exact name of the law, but energy cannot be created or destroyed. I believe the same is true of power. I think the amount of power that exists like in a system or in a society doesn't change. It's not created or destroyed, but where it lies changes.
Yeah.
Okay? So generally speaking, if an individual gives up his or her power,
someone else takes it.
Yes, it goes elsewhere. So if you're not willing to take responsibility and accountability and empower yourself, like, okay, then the most obvious manifestation is it goes to the state, it goes to the government, right? Or it could go to other family members, it could go to
a workplace.
Friends. It could go to a workplace.
Boss.
It could go to other institutions.
Yeah.
Power can be held by lots of different places. If you go back in certain times, in the West even, like the church itself had more power than the government in many ways, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, all right, power can be, here or there, and it's, none of us keep it 100% all in ourselves. There's probably people who would like to think that they do, but to do that, you'd really have to like detach yourself from society and just almost like be like a stateless person who just lives in the forest and like does all your own self-sustained farm. Like there's degrees to it.
Yeah.
So, and I think most people are willing to, okay, like as long as you trust the other parties, like look, we're here in El Salvador.
Yeah.
All right. And obviously the government here has power.
Yes.
And
they
if the
do, of
government,
course.
if the government didn't actually have power, then they wouldn't have been able to secure and clean up the country they did before, right? So they were able to take the power from the gangs,
Yeah.
right? And say, okay, no, the government's gonna take some of this back, and we're gonna also give back some to the people,
Right.
right? So I don't think the amount of power in El Salvador changed, but where it's sitting,
I think
has
they
shifted.
transmuted that energy of power from the violence of the gangs into sovereignty of the people through Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I think it happened more or less at the same time.
yeah, it's like a transmutation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you, because power is energy. It's a form of, it's got its own frequency, but it's a form of energy, and it definitely transmutes. So I love that analogy. I think that's wonderful. And I think that many people, I mean, especially freedom lovers, they are very keen to find more ways to reclaim back their power, to reclaim back their sovereignty, to build life again in the most self-sustained, powerful way that they can have, like individually powerful. But yet and a lot of those great people are listeners of my podcast, so where I'm getting at is a lot of those people are being stopped when it comes to the conversation of money. And I'm curious why. Why is it that it is hard for people to cross that barrier of going deeper into the topic of money, understanding how it works, and then is it because it forces you to take agency in the end? I mean, I don't know why, but it's a phenomena that I'm seeing, so I'm curious to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I have multiple answers to this. I think it's a lot of things at play. I don't think it's one.
Okay.
One of them is just, I think that, I've said this before on multiple podcasts, and this is that actually by nature, most human beings are conservative.
Okay.
When I say conservative, I don't mean in a hard political sense.
Okay.
What I mean is most people are very resistant to change.
Right.
So regardless of whether someone is politically like liberal or progressive or right or left or whatever, it doesn't matter. Most people are conservative by nature. They don't like change. Things are in their comfort zone. It's familiar. It's what they know. And introducing something new, especially if it's like radical or it takes work, most people are. I wouldn't even say most people. I'd say like everyone. Everyone is resistant to change to some degree. We all have our things that we like. We have our daily habits. We have our field of knowledge. We don't really like someone coming in and being like, oh no, like do it completely a different way, right? So I think that's a huge factor. We are all born, we've all been born and grown up in fiat currency world, right? Like it's all we know. Like what even is, again, you say someone money, most people, they think money, they're going to think of like the banknote of their particular currency. They'll think of a dollar sign, a euro, a yen, whatever, like that's money. And that's what we know. Like when we say the word money, typically that's what it means. That's what everyone means, right? So to get someone to like go right back to the basics and like rethink it all, you're actually asking them to do quite a lot of work. And anyone who's gone down the Bitcoin rabbit hole will say, actually, it takes time.
Yeah, it does.
It takes time. You have to read, you have to listen, you have to put your ego aside and assume, okay, let me just assume I don't know anything about money.
Yeah.
And let me listen to this crazy person, right? Right? Like, let me listen to these weirdos who are like,
all these weirdos talking about Bitcoin all the time.
Raving about magic instant money. There's that. There's the I don't even like the term misinformation, but it is.
Yeah.
Right? There's the misinformation
The
around
ridiculing of it.
yeah, around it's only used by criminals, or the whole thing is a scam, it's just a tulip bubble, the Ponzi, right? Like these things that at this point, you roll your eyes when you hear them, right? But they're very effective narratives at shutting off people's brains.
Yeah.
Because most people will just hear it and they'll be like, oh, I just heard it was a scam. And they don't do deep dive. Again, even when you say Bitcoin, most people just think like, oh, crypto, like they think all of it, right? They don't separate Bitcoin from crypto. It's just, oh, it's all crypto. And well, I don't buy Bitcoin because, my friend bought whatever on Dogcoin and he lost all his money. And so it's a scam. It's like, you're not even talking about Bitcoin. Like, what does a random meme coin have? So, there's all that. Also, people are very distracted.
Yeah.
People are busy and they're distracted.
Yes.
Some people are genuinely busy. Lots of people are just distracted. They're spending 5 hours a day frying your brain on TikTok and social media, and then frying your brain for another 3 hours on the television, and you're distracted, you're worried about politics and the culture and this and this and this. People are just distracted. It's hard to get people to learn anything new, let alone about money, which is quite a dry subject. Money and economics, it doesn't excite people. Oh, let me spend 20 hours reading a book. Let me read a book about money. So I think there's that. And I think because it's money, here's another one. Gosh, there's so many factors. It's not in the interest of the powers that be
that people
for
know
people to learn this, for it to be transparent.
Yeah.
I would wager that I have no degree or certification in anything financial related, right? But I'd say certainly compared to the layperson, I have a better understanding of the money system and how it generally works. But it's so opaque that it's actually really hard to understand. The first time I learned about fractional reserve banking and how money is even made and how money is made when for example, if someone goes to the bank and takes out a loan, then the money is made on the spot. It's not coming out of something existing, or maybe a bank has $1 billion in deposits in it, but actually in cash reserves they only have 100 million in cash, and then the other 900 million. It's confusing.
I know.
Even for me, I can't explain it all perfectly because I don't have the level of depth and sophistication and study to understand. So it's a huge rabbit hole. And then there's also understanding the alternative, right? So if you're trying to get someone to understand Bitcoin, it's a bit complicated. It's not, there's a high level overview that's very simple, but there's layers of technicality. Even as a Bitcoiner, there are Bitcoiners who are hardcore into the tech side. And if they're talking and having I don't even know what they're talking about.
Oh, sure. Same.
Right?
Yeah.
And I consider myself someone who's really enthusiastic about Bitcoin. And I'm like, gosh, you're talking to miners and when you're the techie people, I don't even know what you guys are talking about. Right?
Yeah.
So there's layers of complexity, and I think that also just kind of scares people. And then I think lastly, there's probably more reasons, but a lot of people don't understand why they should care.
Right.
And actually, in my personal experience, in my opinion, that is the best place to start. Is why should I?
Yeah.
Why should I care? Okay, so most people actually do care. People do care about money. People do care about the fact that everything in the grocery stores seems to keep getting more expensive, and house prices are going up, and they're harder to afford, and it seems harder day to day to get. So that should really actually always be the starting point. I think, okay, here's why you should care. So everyone's talking about cost of living and they use these terms, cost of living crisis. They'll never talk about inflation.
Exactly.
They'll never. Right? They'll never. I remember after the pandemic
when they did. Smart rhetoric game.
Yeah, I remember after the pandemic when they did all of their horrible policies, and then everyone is in the UK. A huge thing was the cost of living crisis. I call it the cost of lockdown crisis, right?
Yeah.
It's but no one ever in the media even made the dot connection.
Of course.
Between maybe there's a connection between
how much money
forcing everyone
printed.
to stay home, shutting down lots of businesses, stopping people working, and then at the same time ramping up the money printing. It doesn't take a genius to know that's going to cause massive inflation down the line. And then the inflation comes, and then and then what do they say? Oh, it's the corporations, it's the corporate greed, it's capitalism, right? And that's why
it's monopolies. It's the oligarchs.
It's the billionaires.
It's Let's tax the billionaires.
It's Elon's fault,
I
right?
love how they do that divide and conquer, where they distract the public to think that it's only the rich people that are the problem. It's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it works because people are not educated and sophisticated on this topic.
So, I agree with you about everything you said, but I want to be bullish. So,
okay.
Zuby, give me some hope.
Sure. Oh, I haven't been trying to blackmail people here. Sorry.
No, I know. No, you're not. You're saying exactly what I'm saying. But the question is, how are we going to get more people to understand that probably the root cause for a lot of their suffering, or for how we can actually create something new in life, is by fixing the money?
Yeah.
What is your way of directing people to start paying attention to it, to learning, to get themselves educated? Where do you point them to, and how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a big question about whether or not it's like our job to do that.
Legit, yes.
I would like to believe that I can help everyone, but I'm very aware from my life experiences that you can't help everyone all the time.
Yeah.
But I do believe morally and ethically it's good to use your knowledge and your abilities and experiences to help people when and where you can. So my first thing is always just gauging if a conversation is worth having. Because some people are just so, not just on this issue, but some people are just, they're so closed-minded that, you know, you're wasting your breath having a conversation or trying to explain or convince them of anything, right? They're just stuck, and it's like, you know what? Like, okay, like I'm not even But if someone is genuinely curious and interested, then, you know, I think that's the first step. And then, like I said, I think you meet people where they are. Their pain points and their concerns, and we all have them. And you start by helping them understand how, in this case, Bitcoin can help to alleviate some of those fears and concerns that they have. And that might take a while. It's typically not going to be a single conversation. It can be sometimes. Some people kind of get it very quickly. Other people don't. And the thing that I think is something particularly interesting about Bitcoin actually is, regardless of someone's kind of like social or political views or like even their socioeconomic status, there's actually a lot of different narratives for the case for Bitcoin. So if I think of, you know, if someone's like a super libertarian ANCAP style, like the case is obvious. Money that's not controlled by the state, that you have full control over, personal sovereignty and so on. Like, it's kind of an easy sell. Someone who's more like fiscally conservative, you know, there's a narrative there for them as well, especially if you, even if they're socially conservative, like you can connect it to family and to generational wealth, and the fact that, like, you know, explain the ravages of inflation and just how damaging it is. And then there's something that works in the opposite fashion. Here's why you should care about it. And even for people who are more like liberal or even progressive, like people who want to, you know, people who, you know, like, let's say, like, you know, let me not even use that term. Let me say the term of like someone who's more like traditionally left wing and who is particularly concerned, like someone who's truly left-wing, like in the way it's meant to be, and is truly concerned about like poverty and inequality and the have-nots and people who are like struggling. They're the ones who are most ravaged by the money printers, especially overseas. Like, it's easier for someone in Nigeria or Turkey or Zimbabwe to understand Bitcoin than it is for someone in like Germany or Switzerland or Canada. True. Because their currencies, like, we're all hit by inflation, but they're hit by like hyperinflation, and just their currency's just absolutely ravaged. So explaining Bitcoin and the value of it is kind of easier. So if you care about those people, whether it's domestically or abroad, like, you know, I think everyone should be concerned about poverty, but again, people on the left in particular, they make their whole thing about like caring about, you know, I care about the poor and I want to help them and stuff, right? A better solution than let's just try to rob the rich and, you know, get their redistribution communistic nonsense. It's like, hey, what if you actually like empowered those people? You actually teach them about money, and now there is a technology, there is a form of money that they can use and they can save in that is not going to get ravaged by inflation. Yep. Okay. So if you price things in Bitcoin terms versus pricing them in dollars or euros or pounds, yes, I know Bitcoin has its fluctuations, but generally speaking, everything keeps getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper in this currency. So why not encourage people to use this one rather than the one where everything is getting more and more and more expensive? What about people who don't even have access to bank accounts, right? What about them? What about people who want to send remittances back to their home country?
Yeah.
Why aren't we encouraging them? So whatever someone's kind of like worldview is, I think there's a good case. There's a strong case for Bitcoin. Bitcoin to me isn't just for like, it's not like just for libertarians or just for conservatives or just for like forget all that. Like it's for, if you care about humanity, then I think you should care about Bitcoin. If you once you understand it. Oh, here's another angle as well. What about people who are very concerned with like war and violent conflict?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Most people don't know or see or have any idea of like the connection between the funny money system and like these infinite, endless wars and the ability to do that. But once you can help them connect those dots and see actually if more and more people adopted this and we moved in this direction, we will have fewer wars.
Yeah.
We will have less conflict. We'll have less violence and all the horrible stuff that comes with it if we had like a true and proper money system that wasn't being just manipulated and devalued and destroyed, then we'd all be better off. Yeah, we'd all be better off. So I think anyone who cares about humanity, and I think almost everyone would say they care about humanity, they should do a deep dive into this Bitcoin thing, because they might find that it's more than magic internet money and number go up. Like it's pretty deep.
What's your favorite beginner's point? Where do you send your people that come and ask you?
Yeah.
Where do you start?
I actually have been sending a lot of people to, it's funny because we just met someone who talked about it, the interview I did with Jack Mallers,
Great.
funnily enough, here in El
Yes.
Salvador.
Yes.
So Real Talk with Zuby with Jack Mallers, I think that was a very good episode for
people who are just coming into it.
getting a basic understanding of like what Bitcoin is and also why you should care about it. Like the way Jack explained inflation
Yep.
and the consequences of it was possibly the best explanation I've actually ever heard of like why inflation is so bad, and putting it in very human terms. So yeah, I think that's
Phenomenal.
I think that's a great
The
starting
guy's
point.
phenomenal. I'll put a link to that episode.
Okay, yeah, please do.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wonderful. And is there a favorite book or anything like that you like, or podcasts
Sure,
that you listen to?
Yeah, I mean, everyone recommends it, but you know, the Bitcoin Standard is a very good book. Saifedean Ammous. That was one of the ones that really helped me understand things. There's a book that's just called Money,
Money?
which I
I don't think I've ever
can't
heard
remember
of
who it's by. It's not a Bitcoin book. It's literally
Okay.
just a book about money. But that was one of the ones I read maybe in like 2015 or 2016 that just
About fiat?
helped me. Yeah, it's just about money in general, like kind of the history of money and what money is. And I think having read that is something that made me, when I came across Bitcoin, I understood it
Because you
and
had
was
the
interested in
background.
it much faster.
Nice.
Because I had a good idea of like the problems
Nice.
of the current system.
I always recommend a documentary called The Four Horsemen.
Okay,
Have you
I haven't
seen
seen that. No, I haven't.
It's incredible. It's also about money.
Okay.
Like an hour and a half of a documentary that's where I first saw Max Kaiser.
Oh, interesting.
And he was very young there because it's like 12 years old, that
Okay.
movie. And so he was talking about Wall Street and how they rob people, and it was incredible. So I learned a lot about fiat in that movie, and I always recommend it to people as the first step to learn about what fiat is like, what is the base of money, how does it work today. And the four horsemen is like the prophecy of
Yes.
like the end of time. So it shows how fiat is taking us to that kind of reality. It doesn't talk about Bitcoin at all, but it's a perfect place to start, I think.
Yeah.
It's a good,
there are a lot of good resources out there.
Oh yeah.
There are a lot of them.
You know that when I started going into this subject, as you do, I didn't know that Bitcoin was like decentralized and there is no Bitcoin office or boss or CEO or whatever. So I Googled like Bitcoin and I got to bitcoin.com, And I'm starting to look at things, and then I see like hundreds of other websites and resources, and like everyone's talking about this, but where is the Bitcoin company website? I'm like looking for this. I did not know.
Yeah.
It was so funny until I asked someone, is there not like a one source of truth, you know, for Bitcoin? And they laughed at me and like, you clearly don't know what that is. That's the whole point in it.
Yeah, one thing I would say to people, I mean, I'm sure lots of your audience is already orange pilled, but for those who, anyone listening to this who may not be, I will say that it's spending a few hours researching and learning about Bitcoin is one of the best ROIs you will ever in your life have on your time.
Yeah.
When I see, anytime I talk about Bitcoin on my platform, like there will be people who literally for years have been like, oh, like I don't know anything about this. Or I know it's like, you've been saying this for 5 years, bro. You've been saying, you've been hearing about, you've been procrastinating learning about Bitcoin for 5, 6, 7 years. Do you know the opportunity cost of this?
Yeah.
Like, you could spend, like, if you just spend those few hours, then like, it's hard to think of a bigger return on investment in terms of your time.
Absolutely.
Because we're not even just talking about our lifetime, we're talking about generations. This is like the equivalent of, I don't know the exact timing, but imagine, I don't know, you could go back to, let's say sometime in the 1950s, right, when, post World War II, America's booming or whatever, and like, you've got someone who is just, has zero, they keep hearing about like something called real estate. Right? They keep hearing about real estate and people are like doing really well in real estate and they just can't be bothered to spend a little time to like
learn.
Bro, like this opportunity is here for us and our generation. Sure, real estate has its benefits and so on, but like this is our generational opportunity. I can easily see a future, and I'm not just like hyping this up. I can very realistically see a future where like our kids are adults, or maybe they even have kids and so on, and they're going to be like telling stories of like, my dad got Bitcoin under 100,000, and they'll be like, what? Like when you talk to boomers and they're like, I bought this house for like $30,000.
Yeah,
like, we bought this. Your granddad bought this house for $8,000, and we're like, what?
Yeah.
Like what? Like that's crazy. Like, I think that's going to be Bitcoin. It's going to be like, they're going to be like, what? Like you used to be able to buy Bitcoin for like 1,000. Like what? Like that's crazy. So. Yeah, I think, and it's like we have the opportunity to position ourselves and give our descendants that opportunity in the same way that there are people who, right now, they're in a good position because their grandfather or their great-grandfather decided to buy that piece of land back in like the early 1900s, and they've been able to like pass that on and, create the generational wealth and so on. I think this is it. This is that opportunity.
It's the gold rush for sure.
Yeah, and people aren't rushing yet.
No.
People are not rushing yet. I think there will come a time when it's crazy. I mean, I've been in Bitcoin since 2017. When I first like really went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, it was under $10,000, right? It was like 6,000, 7,000 at the time, I remember. It was actually November 2017. So I think it was around $6,000, $7,000. And 2017 doesn't sound that long ago to me. Like I can very, very clearly remember this day. And it's kind of crazy to think like already, just fast forward 8 years, and owning a whole Bitcoin is already completely out of the reach of the majority of the population.
Yeah.
Whereas just 8 years ago, and of course at that time I thought I was late because people were buying like under 1,000 and so on, right? And people before them, they were like, what? People were getting it for double digits or single digits and so on. And so I don't think that shouldn't discourage anyone because you don't need to like have a whole Bitcoin or whatever, right? Like it's never quote unquote too late. This is something that could be, by the time Bitcoin's $1 million plus, I don't know what $1 million is going to be worth, but
Yeah.
I just think it's gonna just keep, it's gonna just keep appreciating. I don't even know if it's Bitcoin appreciating or if it's just like everything else.
Yeah.
Everything else is gonna bleed out compared to it. When you denominate in Bitcoin,
Yeah.
then everything else is trending. It's just trending downwards.
Down.
And yeah, I don't know. I just want to encourage people to like at least take the time. Like, look, if someone even does the deep dive and really like learns about this, and they somehow come to the conclusion that like they're not interested or like they still don't want any, then okay, God bless you. But I think if you do it, like you're unlikely to reach that conclusion. But if you do, then I just don't want people to be ignorant.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
I think it would be sad if we're like 10 years forward in 2035, and there's someone who literally for the past like 15 years they've been hearing about Bitcoin, but they can't be bothered to, on the same phone that they're typing you the message saying, I don't know anything about Bitcoin, or I haven't been bothered. You on the exact same device, you could literally go to Google, go to your search engine, and
buy Bitcoin.
Type it in, or just learn. Go on YouTube, learn, buy a book, just use free resources. You don't even need to spend money, and just learn about what it is. Like, just don't be so pridefully ignorant.
Yeah.
Like, it could really not just make life so much harder for you, but harder for your kids and harder for your grandkids and so on. Like, these opportunities don't. This isn't like a typical opportunity. Like, Bitcoin is a lot of very, very, very smart and very, very successful people are hyped up about it and interested about it for a very good reason. I'm not saying all this to like pump my bags or to like, no, it's because we have I can see people are struggling, even in the West, even in developed countries. People are struggling. Like, it's hard. Like, things are really getting expensive. I remember how much things used to cost 10 years ago compared to now. Like, inflation is real. And had I not done a deep dive into Bitcoin back in 2017 and 18 and built my conviction, and I would be I would be far worse off. I know for a fact. Like, I would be far worse off if it were not for the existence of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I'm in a much, much better position now because Bitcoin exists. And I'm not alone in that regard, and everyone has access to this. You don't need to be wealthy to begin with. You don't
need permission.
No, we don't need permission. You don't need a gatekeeper wherever you're starting from. Even if it's like, what, I'm going to put $5 a week. I'm going to put $1 a day into Bitcoin. If you do that, if you put $1 a day into Bitcoin, then by the end of that year, you'd probably be in like the top 2% of Bitcoin holders in the world. Just with that, like, I think estimated 96 to 97% of the population does not have a Satoshi.
Yep.
So if we're talking about, like, for the people who are like, oh, is it too late to buy Bitcoin? 97% of the population has nothing, is on 0.000000. So even if you just bought $1, you are now in like the 3% of people who has something. Right? So just get off zero.
That's
even if you're not a true believer, even if you're like, zero is not the correct amount of Bitcoin to have.
Yeah.
Like, zero is not the right amount of Satoshis to have. Let's not even talk about Bitcoin. Talk about Satoshis, right? Just get off zero, and then from there,
I love this.
learn more, build your conviction, but
you're very good at making people bullish.
Don't be sitting here at zero.
No, it's like the worst thing you can do. The worst thing you can do. There's one thing you take out of this conversation is get off zero.
Get off zero.
Zuby, do you think we are in the process of a spiritual awakening these days?
Yes.
Do you feel like we are? Do you think life is changing? Do you think consciousness is changing? How do you see the whole spiritual thing? I know it's I mean, go wherever you want.
My answer is yes. And I think part of it is because I think a lot of people are coming to God by seeing Satan first. I think that there has been, I think evil's kind of come out of hiding. It's a lot more obvious and in your face in many ways if you are paying attention than it has been previously. And I think, oddly enough, that is causing more people to ask questions and to kind of go a little bit deeper and to take these ideas that are not purely materialistic and purely scientific a little more seriously. I've seen, like, there's some very, very prominent and public examples of this, but even outside of that, just on an individual day-to-day level, I see more people at least asking those questions and starting to think, there's something, lots of things are rational and logical and scientific, but there seems to be something beyond that. So yeah, I think more and more people are starting to ask those questions, and yeah, I don't know exactly what it leads to, but I think it's good for people to be doing more soul searching and being open-minded and open-hearted enough to, at least at a minimum, consider ideas of spirituality and religion and God, and to think about it. And I think if you genuinely explore it, then you will get pulled into the rabbit hole. And I think for a lot of people, their own, how would I put it? Kind of a bit like what I was reflecting on before, like their own brains
cage
block them.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like I'm a Christian, and I have been my entire life. But I can imagine an alternative universe or reality where I'm an atheist. And I think if I were like that, it would largely be because, like, my own brain and perhaps my own pride are blocking me from even being willing to entertain or explore certain ideas.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people, including some like pretty prominent, like very, very vocal atheists and even anti-theists, kind of like soften their stance over the past decade, which is interesting. And I think a lot of it hasn't come necessarily through religious apologetics, but through just seeing what's happening in the world and in the culture and in their countries, and confronting some of the darkness and confronting some of the things that are impossible to explain purely rationally or purely scientifically, and making them think, man, there's something, I don't know, maybe not jumping straight to I believe in God, right? But they're like, maybe I should take some of these ideas a little more seriously. There seems to be something going on. There seem to be some of these people out here who seem to know something, that they seem to be tapped and tuned into something that I'm not, and I'm missing. They seem to be able to make predictions more accurately than I am, and paint with more colors than I am. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Do you normally guide people to do more soul searching and be open to this when you see that they are being carried down the black pill path? I mean, I'm seeing that a lot around me, where people have woken up at certain stage, normally during COVID, and then life is so hard, and the amount of truths you're discovering can really be disheartening, can be hard to cope with.
Yeah.
And you don't find hope in many things anymore. I mean, I always recommend to people to go do some mental, spiritual work.
Yeah.
Is that something that you correlate, like the black pill path, and losing hope in life, and then maybe you want to look this way and start doing some introspecting and like find your path again to a white pill.
To a white pill. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm a Christian. I believe Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior and died for our sins. And I don't believe that. Look, I believe human beings are inherently sinful. I believe in original sin, and I don't believe that we can. I don't believe like we can ultimately, in the spiritual sense, save ourselves.
Yeah, I agree.
In the physical realm, you know, I'm kind of about, hey, like, save yourself in the you know. When it comes to your finances or looking after your body or, you know, taking care of your family, right? Save yourself in that way, you know, don't look to the government. But if we're talking like ultimately, I don't believe we're capable of that. And the world is dark, and there is a lot of horrible stuff, and there is darkness, and there is despair. I can completely empathize or sympathize with people who are black-pilled, because I see a lot of the same things that they do, and I understand how you could adopt a worldview and a mindset where it's just like, you know, what's even the point? What's the point of anything? Like, it all sucks. Like, it's just darkness and death and sickness and illness and violence, and people are, you know, can be really nasty and horrible to each other.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons to be black-pilled. But I think, you know, you keep pulling on that thread, and I think it leads people to God. It leads people to Christ, because, you know, it's interesting. There are people who are like really like anti-Christianity or anti-religion as a whole, and one of their criticisms is that it's a crutch, right? And that people believe in religion or believe in an afterlife and heaven because it makes it easier to get through life, or it makes it easier to deal with sickness or a loved one dying or something like that. And like, this is their huge criticism. And I'm like, and?
So?
Like, is that a bad thing? Obviously, I believe it's true, but like, even if you didn't objectively, what is so bad about people having a belief system and a faith that enables them to endure and be less depressed and not be suicidal and to cope with sickness and illness and death? Like, why is that bad? Like, that sounds like a good thing to me. If someone needs a crutch isn't a bad thing. Right? Like, you know, someone's got a broken leg and it's like, oh, you've got a crutch. I was like, yeah, I need the crutch. Right? Like, I don't think we're meant to deal with everything on our own. I don't think we can.
Yeah.
I think we can try. And I think there's different ways we can, you know, frame things, and people can, you know, look, in our societies, like a significant percentage of the population literally drug themselves in order to cope with daily, weekly life and reality.
Right.
It's not even most people drug themselves to some degree.
Yeah.
In the USA, you have a quarter of the population on some type of antidepressant or SSRI, some type of mental health medication. I think it's like over 20% of the population, of the adult population. What percentage use out or drinking alcohol or using some other, you know, alcohol is the most common form of, like, you know, trying to detach, escape reality, numb yourself a little bit. You know, in every movie when someone is sad, what do you do? There's that scene where they're at the bar and they're drinking. And that's like, if you kind of think about that quite deeply, it shows like, gosh, like, people are struggling to like just deal with reality. There are people who like will explicitly tell you like, oh, I hate being sober. And I'm like, bro, think of what you're saying. Like, that's like, you hate being sober. Like, you need to alter your mind state like constantly in order to just like, you know, cope with life and reality. I think it's crazy that we're having all these conversations about, like, you know, the mental health crisis and all of this, and fewer people, like, not more people are like directly linking this to like just the spiritual sickness and the dearth of faith. and the abandonment of that. Like, to me, these things are they're very obviously correlated, that the more and more people abandon faith and throw that away and then engage in all of this other stuff that the world tells them to, then yeah, of course there's going to be more depression. Of course there's going to be more anxiety. Of course there's going to be more suicidal ideation, because you know, you're trying to walk a path alone that you're not meant to walk alone.
Fully agree with you. What gives you hope?
I feel like I just touched on it. My faith.
And your beautiful son?
Yeah, family, loved ones, friends. Look, there's lots of reasons to be hopeful. I think you just have to, like, you know, your mindset really creates your reality in many ways. It really, really does. How you frame things and how you react and respond to things. Because as I've said, like, the world does have a ton of darkness in it. And the world has a ton of light in it. And whatever you focus on is going to, you know, grow and be bigger to you. What you focus on, what you put your energy into, it's generally going to grow. So if you choose to focus on the negative, and you choose to focus on the bad things that are happening, and you choose to focus on thoughts of illness and death and catastrophe and crime and war, all of these things, if that's where your predominant focus is, like, you're going to struggle to be a happy and a joyful person long term. But if you focus on the good, you focus on kindness, and you put yourself in a good environment, and you surround yourself with good people, this doesn't mean that you, by the way, this doesn't mean you, like,
Run away.
pretend that bad stuff isn't happening, right? I'm a very positive person, but I'm also very, like, grounded in reality, and I'm quite aware of all of these bad things. But you can reframe it. In fact, I get asked a lot what motivates me the most. Mm-hmm. What motivates me the most is knowing that I and everyone else is going to die.
Yeah.
You're like, gosh, how are you so motivated? How do you have so much energy? I'm like, bro, like, I'm not here forever. No one is here forever. Of course I'm going to treat people well and try to be, like, kind to them, like, especially family, but everyone, strangers, friends, like, I don't know, like, I could talk to someone and, like, I don't know, next time, gosh, like, I'm going deeper. Like, I'm from a really big family. My dad's one of 11. My mom is one of 8. Uh-huh. And something no one, like, talks about with having a big family is actually over the course of your lifetime, you witness a lot of death.
Right.
You witness a lot of birth and new life as well. But you witness a lot of death. Like, all of my grandparents have died. I've lost so many aunties and uncles. I've had a lot of cousins die. Many of my cousins died at an age younger than I am now.
Right.
Through accident, through disease, through different types of things. And it makes me just hyper conscious of my own and other people's mortality. Yes, I do believe in an afterlife, and I think that this is temporary. But it's why I don't, like, I just, like, man, I've got to get things done. I've got to get things done.
And live it to the max, like, live it to the fullest.
Exactly. I try to live where, like, you know, if I can genuinely say, if I died tomorrow, and I don't want to and I don't plan to, God forbid, right? I don't want to die tomorrow. But if I did, I'd be, like,
fine.
I'd be happy with how I lived my life.
I'm the same.
And what I achieved and how I treated people and the things I did. Like, I wouldn't die with, like, oh man, all of those things I wanted to do and all, like, I didn't even, like, I didn't even try. I just, like, hid away. Like, no, like, it's why I do what I do. Like, I pray that, gosh, I hope I have many, many, many more decades, right? I hope I live to 100.
Oh yeah.
But it's not guaranteed. You know, I could be gone next week. God forbid. But, like, it's possible. I don't know. We don't know. People get sick. People die. Accidents happen. Horrible things happen. Now, to me, that's not a reason to be, like, sad and depressed and black-pilled. It's a reason to, like, all right, like, not in a reckless way, right? Not like the YOLO, like, go do stupid stuff, right? But, like, in the, like, you do, like, what are you waiting for? Like, come on, like, live with some urgency. Live with some urgency. And also just, like, don't hold stupid grudges. Like, when I meet people who are like, oh, I don't know. There's people who they had an argument with their brother 10 years ago and like now they don't talk anymore. Like, that's stupid. Like, fix your relationships. Like, what do you mean you don't talk? Your parents aren't going to live forever. If you're blessed for your parents to still be alive, again, I'm aware there might be some like super extreme scenario where like you,
Yeah.
right? There's always
Sure,
these like extreme
sure.
exceptions, but generally speaking,
Yeah.
like you should like, they're not around, people aren't around forever. So yeah, maybe because of circumstances, you're not going to be best friends with your mom or with your dad or whatever, but like, can you at least like reconcile to some degree to a point where if that person died tomorrow, you wouldn't be like, oh crap,
Yeah.
I should have like, like I'm very like just cautious and aware to not have that. I literally have no grudges. I have no grudges. Everyone who I love knows I love them. Tell it to them every time I see them. I don't think anyone would be like, oh, Zuby treated me bad. Like I just do my best to be like everyone. Just treat everyone with kindness and respect and dignity. If there's something you want to build or you want to create or you want to do, like do your best to make it happen. If you've got like a dream, it doesn't even need to be that deep. It could be like there's a country or a city you've been like wanting to go to for 10 years. Go. Just do it. Don't just sit there dreaming, oh, I want to go to Rome. I've been thinking about going to Rome for so long. Like, unless there's some like huge barrier, like book the ticket and go. Like, like we don't live forever like that.
I love it. I love your approach to life. I love how grounded and based and in your face you are. I wish more people were like you. This is amazing. I knew that talking to you would be so much fun. And it was a delight.
Oh, I'm happy to hear. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. And I mean, I don't need to even say where people should follow you, but your podcast, your music, you're everywhere.
Yeah.
So.
At Zuby Music on all social media. And you can check out my podcast and music on all platforms. Just search my name, Zuby. You'll find me.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the gift of your time.
Thanks for being with us. Please take a minute to give this episode a like, a comment, and subscribe or follow. And please share it with your friends so they can also get value and choose to take some positive action in their lives. Till next time.